The massive hall on Nexus Prime buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 47 different species filled the curved seats that spiraled down toward the central speaking platform. Some breathed oxygen like humans. Others required special atmosphere suits, and a few existed as pure energy contained in crystal vessels. Despite their differences, they all shared one thing today: fear. Ambassador Zektar stepped onto the platform. His blue skin gleamed under the artificial lights, and his forearms gestured dramatically as he began to speak. The translator devices worn by each representative hummed softly, converting his words into dozens of languages. Honored members of the Galactic Council. Zektar's voice carried across the hall. We face a crisis unlike any in our peaceful history. The humans have shown their true nature. They are not the curious explorers they pretended to be. They are killers. A wave of murmurs swept through the assembly. The Thylorian delegation shifted uneasily in their seats, their feathered crests rising in distress. The rock-like granite folk remained silent as always, but their glowing eyes dimmed with worry. Zektar activated a holographic display above the platform. Images of destroyed space stations filled the air, twisted metal floating in the void of space. 3 days ago, human ships attacked our research station at Beta Centauri. 23 scientists died. These were people studying peaceful cosmic phenomena, not soldiers. More images appeared. A convoy of civilian transport ships, their hulls torn open like broken eggs, bodies floating in space, families who had been traveling to visit relatives on distant worlds. 2 days ago, they destroyed a civilian convoy near the Vega system. 147 innocent beings lost their lives, children among them. The final image was the most shocking: a planet's orbital defense grid, designed only to deflect asteroids and space debris, lay in ruins. The planet below showed scorch marks from orbital bombardment. Yesterday, they completely destroyed the defenses around Kepler 438b and attacked the surface. The death toll is still being counted, but early reports suggest thousands may have died. Elder Season, the ancient Thylorian who served as the Council's arbiter, slowly stood. Her feathers had turned white with age, and her voice carried the weight of centuries. Show us the evidence that humans were responsible. Zektar nodded. The hologram changed to show communication records. Voices speaking in English, the human language, could be heard giving attack orders. Ship energy signatures appeared on screen, matching exactly the patterns produced by human technology. Video recordings from survivors clearly showed ships bearing human markings and design. The evidence is overwhelming, Zektar continued, but we are a civilized galaxy. Even faced with such unprovoked aggression, we choose to follow the path of peace. I propose we send one final communication to Earth. We will offer them a chance to explain their actions and make amends. General Karath of the Centauri Federation stood up. His insect-like features clicked as he spoke. And if they refuse? If they continue their attacks? Then we will have no choice but to treat them as a rogue species, Elder Season replied sadly. Economic sanctions, travel restrictions, and if necessary, military action to protect innocent lives. The vote was swift. 45 species voted in favor of the peace proposal. Only 2 abstained, saying they needed more time to consider the evidence. None voted against it. Elder Season herself composed the message. She had served as a diplomat for over 300 years and had helped resolve countless conflicts between species. She chose her words carefully, hoping that even now peace might be possible. The message was transmitted across subspace on all known human communication frequencies. It was simple and direct. To the government and people of Earth, the Galactic Council has received evidence that human military forces have attacked peaceful installations and civilian targets, resulting in significant loss of life. These actions violate all accepted standards of interstellar conduct. However, we believe in peaceful resolution of conflicts. We formally request that you cease all hostile activities immediately and agree to Council arbitration of this matter. We are prepared to send a peacekeeping force to human space to ensure no further violence occurs while we work together to understand what has happened. You have 72 standard hours to respond to this communication. We hope for a swift and peaceful resolution to this crisis. The message was sent with the full authority of the Galactic Council behind it. Every species contributed their fastest communication arrays to ensure the signal reached Earth as quickly as possible. The assembled representatives then settled in to wait. The first day passed slowly. Council members checked their communication devices constantly, hoping for any sign of a human response. Some optimistically prepared for negotiations, gathering legal experts and peaceful arbitrators. Others, more pessimistic, began quiet discussions about military preparations. On the second day, tension grew. Several representatives suggested that perhaps the humans needed more time to investigate the accusations. After all, it was possible that rogue elements within human space had acted without government approval. Maybe Earth's leaders were as shocked as everyone else and needed time to track down the responsible parties. By the third day, hope was fading. The communication arrays continued to monitor all frequencies coming from human space. They detected normal civilian traffic, routine military communications, and the usual background noise of a technological civilization. But there was no response to the Council's message. As the deadline approached, Elder Season called an emergency session. The Great Hall filled once again, but this time the mood was grim. Representatives spoke in hushed tones, many having already concluded that war was inevitable. "The 72-hour deadline has passed," Elder Season announced. "We have received no response from the human government. No explanation, no apology, no agreement to negotiations. Only silence." Ambassador Zektar rose from his seat. "The meaning is clear. They do not recognize the authority of this council. They do not respect our attempts at peaceful resolution. Their silence is an answer in itself. Perhaps they simply need more time," suggested Dr. Millith of the Andromedan Science Collective. "Humans are a young species. They may not understand the significance of our communication." "They understand perfectly," Zektar replied. "They have had diplomatic contact with several of our member species for over 50 years. They know our customs and our laws. Their silence is deliberate defiance." The debate continued for hours. Some representatives argued for patience, others for immediate action. In the end, it was Elder Season who made the final decision. "The human government has chosen not to respond to our peaceful overture," she said sadly. "While we regret this outcome, we cannot ignore the attacks on our member species. I hereby authorize the formation of a joint task force to enter human space and demand an explanation for these unprovoked acts of war." The order went out immediately. 12 species committed ships to the effort, creating a fleet of 147 vessels. It was the largest military force the Peaceful Council had ever assembled, but they felt they had no choice. As the ships began gathering at the edge of Council space, preparing for the jump to the Sol system, no one noticed the small discrepancies in the evidence they had been shown. No one questioned why human ships had been able to travel such vast distances in such short time frames. No one wondered why the attack patterns seemed so different from known human tactical doctrine. The fleet prepared to depart for Earth, carrying with them the Council's demand for answers. They expected to find either a defiant enemy or a government ready to negotiate. They had no idea they were about to discover something far more terrifying than human aggression: the truth about who had really been behind the attacks. Dr. Elena Vasquez sat in her small quarters aboard Concordia Station, watching the news feeds from the Galactic Council with growing unease. The neutral station orbited between Council space and the independent systems, serving as a refuge for diplomats, researchers, and others who found themselves caught between political boundaries. Elena had once been humanity's primary ambassador to the Galactic Council. She had spent 15 years building relationships with alien species, learning their customs and working to integrate humanity into the galactic community. That had ended abruptly 6 months ago, when political changes on Earth led to her replacement with someone the new government considered more reliable. Now she watched, in horror, as the species she had worked so hard to befriend prepared for war against her own people. But something about the evidence presented to the Council bothered her. She had studied human military doctrine extensively during her diplomatic career, and the attack patterns described by Ambassador Zektar seemed wrong. Elena pulled up the tactical data on her personal computer. The attacks had occurred across a span of over 200 light-years in less than a week. She ran the calculations 3 times, but the answer was always the same. Even with humanity's fastest ships, it would have taken at least 2 weeks to travel between the attack sites. She opened a secure communication channel to Earth. It took several minutes for the signal to reach Admiral Sarah Chen at Fleet Command. When Chen's face appeared on the screen, Elena could see the stress written across her features. "Elena," Chen said, "I'm glad you called. We're in serious trouble here." "I've been watching the council proceedings," Elena replied. "Sarah, the timeline doesn't work. Our ships couldn't have carried out those attacks in the sequence described." Chen nodded grimly. "That's what we've been trying to figure out. Every single one of our ships is accounted for. We've got complete tracking data, independent verification, and witness statements. During the time of the alleged attacks, our entire fleet was conducting defensive exercises in the outer Sol system." Chen transferred a data package to Elena's computer. "Take a look at this. We've been investigating the attack sites, and what we've found doesn't match human technology." Elena opened the files and began reading. The energy signatures attributed to human weapons were close but not exact. The attack pattern showed a level of coordination that would have required instantaneous communication across vast distances, something humans had never achieved. Most interesting were the trace elements found at the attack sites. "Exotic matter," Elena murmured, reading the analysis reports. "Silicon-based compounds with quantum resonance properties?" "Exactly," Chen confirmed. "And that exotic matter matches samples we've collected from debris in our own space. Someone has been attacking our ships too, Elena. Small-scale raids that we initially attributed to pirates or raiders. But now we're seeing a pattern." Elena pulled up the galactic political map. "Sarah, look at this. Every attack site is in a region where the Veltar sovereignty has recently established mining operations or trade routes. The Veltar were one of the newer members of the Galactic Council, having joined only 5 years earlier. They were silicon-based life forms with the unusual ability to alter their molecular structure, allowing them to change shape and appearance. The Council had welcomed them as refugees after their homeworld was reportedly devastated by an oppressive regime. "We've been thinking the same thing," Chen said. "But accusing a Council member species of framing us for war crimes is a serious allegation. We need more proof." Elena spent the next several hours reviewing intelligence reports from across human space. A pattern began to emerge. The Veltar had been systematically surveying human defenses for months, always under the guise of peaceful trade missions or scientific exchanges. They had requested detailed technical specifications for human ships, claimed they were interested in cultural exchanges with human military personnel, and had even asked for tours of sensitive installations. At the time, these requests had seemed like normal diplomatic overtures from a species trying to integrate into galactic society. Now they looked like intelligence-gathering operations. Elena's investigation took an even more disturbing turn when she accessed archived communications from the Outer Rim territories. Several independent traders and exploration teams had reported encounters with ships that appeared to be human, but behaved strangely. The crew spoke English but with odd accent patterns. Their ships looked human but had unusual energy signatures. One report was particularly chilling. A mining operation on the edge of human space had been contacted by what appeared to be a human research vessel. The ship had requested permission to study the local asteroid field. The miners had granted permission, but became suspicious when the research team showed no interest in the asteroids and instead focused their scans on the mining equipment and defensive systems. When the miners tried to contact the ship again, they received no response. The vessel had simply vanished. A week later, the mining operation was attacked and destroyed by unknown ships. The few survivors reported that the attackers used weapons that seemed human in design, but far more powerful than anything in Earth's known arsenal. Elena began, cross-referencing these reports with known Veltar activities. The correlation was undeniable. In every case, Veltar trade missions or scientific expeditions had visited the region shortly before the mysterious human ships appeared. She opened another channel to Admiral Chen. "Sarah, I think I know what's happening. The Veltar are shapeshifters. They're using their abilities to mimic our ships and carry out false flag operations." Chen's face grew grim. "We've reached the same conclusion. But Elena, it gets worse. We've detected unusual quantum signatures near the edge of our solar system. Long-range sensors are picking up massive gravitational distortions approaching from deep space." "What kind of distortions?" "The kind that would be created by a fleet of thousands of ships traveling in formation. Elena, someone is coming, and they're not trying to hide their approach. They want us to know they're coming." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "How long do we have?" "Based on current trajectory and speed, approximately 18 months. maybe less. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was terrifying. The Veltar weren't just trying to frame humanity for war crimes. They were systematically eliminating potential threats before the arrival of something much larger and more dangerous. Elena accessed the Galactic Council's historical records, searching for information about the Veltar homeworld and the conflict that had supposedly driven them to seek refuge in Council space. The official records spoke of an oppressive regime that had been overthrown by freedom fighters, with the surviving Veltar fleeing to escape persecution. But Elena dug deeper, accessing older archives and cross-referencing them with deep space survey data. What she found made her blood run cold. The Veltar homeworld hadn't been liberated 5 years ago. It had gone completely silent. No communications, no energy signatures, no signs of life at all. Long-range telescopic data showed the planet's surface had been completely transformed. The original Veltar cities were gone, replaced by massive crystalline structures that pulsed with unknown energy patterns. Whatever had happened to the original Veltar, it wasn't liberation. Elena compiled all of her findings into a comprehensive report. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling. The Veltar in Council space weren't refugees from their homeworld. They were advanced scouts for whatever had consumed their civilization. She transmitted the report to Admiral Chen, and then sat back in her chair, staring out at the stars visible through her quarter's viewport. Somewhere out there, a Council fleet was preparing to attack Earth based on fabricated evidence. Meanwhile, the real threat was approaching from the galactic rim, and no one except humanity seemed to be aware of it. The irony was bitter. The Galactic Council was preparing to destroy the one species that might actually be able to help them when the true enemy arrived. Humanity's military culture, often criticized by peaceful Council species as primitive and violent, might be exactly what the galaxy needed to survive. Elena began composing a message to every contact she still had within the Council diplomatic corps. It was a desperate gamble, but someone had to warn them about what was really happening. The question was whether anyone would listen to a disgraced human diplomat's warnings about shape-shifting aliens and invasion fleets from beyond the galactic rim. As she worked, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The Council fleet would reach Earth soon, and when they did, they would find humans who had been preparing not for conquest, but for something far worse than any of them had imagined. The Joint Council fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system, their sensors immediately beginning wide-range scans of human space. Fleet Admiral Terex of the Draconian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the tactical displays with growing confusion. "Where are they?" he muttered, his reptilian features creased with concern. The scanners showed a surprisingly quiet system. Earth's orbital defenses appeared to be powered down, their energy signatures barely registering on the fleet's sensors. The major shipping lanes that should have been busy with commercial traffic were nearly empty. General Karouth of the Centauri Federation's ship was positioned nearby. His insectoid voice crackled over the communication channel. "This doesn't feel right, Terex. Where's their fleet? Where are the defense platforms we know they have?" "Maybe they're hiding," suggested Captain Valina of the Thylorian cruiser. "Humans are known for their tactical cunning. This could be an ambush." Elder Season, who had insisted on accompanying the fleet despite the danger, spoke from her position aboard the command vessel. "Or perhaps they're finally ready to surrender. Their silence in response to our communication might have been shame, not defiance." The fleet maintained formation as they moved deeper into the system. They passed the orbit of Pluto, then Neptune with no sign of human military presence. A few automated mining platforms continued their work in the asteroid belt, but they showed no sign of hostile intent. It wasn't until they reached the orbit of Mars that they received their first communication from the humans. The message came from a single small shuttle, broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Fleet Command. I request a meeting with the senior commanders of your fleet. I will be waiting at coordinates 127-4378 in the asteroid belt. Come with minimal escort if you wish to understand the truth about what has been happening." Fleet Admiral T-Rex studied the coordinates. They pointed to an unremarkable asteroid with what appeared to be a small research station attached. "It's obviously a trap," he declared. "Humans are trying to lure us into a kill zone." "I don't think so," Elder Season said thoughtfully. If they wanted to attack us, they could have done so already. Our ships have been exposed since we entered the system. General Korouth's mandibles clicked nervously. The human admiral is alone in a single shuttle. Either she's incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Or she has something important to show us, Elder Season suggested. I believe we should meet with her, but maintain full defensive postures and keep the fleet ready for immediate departure. The meeting was arranged for 6 hours later. A small delegation consisting of Elder Season, Fleet Admiral T-Rex, General Korouth, and Captain Valina took a heavily shielded transport to the asteroid coordinates. Their ships remained at a safe distance, weapons powered and shields raised. Admiral Chen was waiting for them exactly as promised. Her shuttle was a standard human design, showing no signs of weapons or unusual modifications. She appeared to be completely alone, which struck the alien commanders as either supremely confident or suicidal. The meeting took place in the small research station's main laboratory. Chen had set up a holographic projector, and what appeared to be a collection of debris and wreckage samples. She looked tired, as if she hadn't slept in days, but her eyes were sharp and focused. "Thank you for coming," Chen began. "I know you're expecting either a surrender or an explanation for humanity's alleged crimes. I'm here to give you something much more important, the truth about who's really been attacking your people." Fleet Admiral T-Rex's claws extended slightly. "Do not insult our intelligence, human. We have evidence of your ships, your weapons, your voices giving attack orders." Chen nodded. "You have evidence of what appeared to be human ships and weapons. But appearances can be deceiving." She activated the holographic projector. "This is wreckage recovered from the Kepler 438b attack site. Notice anything unusual about the metal composition?" The hologram showed a detailed analysis of hull fragments. The molecular structure appeared human at first glance, but closer examination revealed subtle differences in the crystalline alignment of the metal. "This isn't Earth steel," Chen continued. "It's an incredibly sophisticated simulation, but it's actually silicon-based matter that's been structured to mimic our materials. And this?" She held up a small black device. "This is the flight recorder from the ship that left this wreckage behind." Chen activated the recorder. Alien voices filled the air, speaking in a language none of them recognized. The translation software took a moment to process the unfamiliar sounds, then began converting them to standard Galactic. Phase 2 complete. Human masquerade successful. Local defenders eliminated with minimal losses to our units. Proceed to next target coordinates. The silence in the room was deafening. General Korouth was the first to speak. "What species is that?" "I don't recognize the vocal patterns." "Veltar," Chen replied grimly. "But not the Veltar you know. These are communications from the real attackers." Elder Season leaned forward. "The Veltar are trusted members of our council. They're refugees from their own homeworld's conflicts." Chen activated another hologram. This one showed long-range telescope images of the Veltar homeworld. The planet's surface was covered with massive crystalline structures that pulsed with unnatural energy. These images were taken 3 months ago. "Does this look like a world recovering from civil war to you?" Captain Valina studied the images with her scientific training. "Those structures. They're not buildings. They look almost organic but wrong somehow, like a disease that builds rather than destroys. We believe the original Veltar species has been extinct for several years," Chen continued. "What you know as the Veltar refugees are actually something else entirely. Something that consumed the original civilization and is now wearing their faces." Fleet Admiral T-Rex stood up abruptly. "These are serious accusations. Do you have proof beyond circumstantial evidence and alien voices?" Chen smiled grimly. "I have something better. I have one of them." She led them to another section of the research station. Behind a force field barrier was a containment cell. Inside was what appeared to be a standard Veltar individual, but something was wrong with its appearance. The creature's surface seemed to shift and flow, as if it couldn't quite maintain its shape. "We captured this one during a raid on our outer colonies last week," Chen explained. "It was masquerading as one of our own ships when we detected the unusual energy signature. When we disabled it, the ship's disguise failed and we saw its true form. The contained creature noticed their presence and moved to the edge of the force field. When it spoke, its voice was perfectly human, speaking flawless English. "Admiral Chen, you're making a terrible mistake. The Council will never believe your lies about the peaceful Veltar." Then its voice changed, becoming the same alien language they had heard on the flight recorder. The creature's form began to shift, revealing glimpses of something beneath the Veltar disguise. It looked like crystalline structures animated by some kind of energy field, similar to the images of the transformed homeworld. Elder Season stepped closer to the barrier. "What are you?" "What happened to the real Veltar?" The creature's form stabilized back into its Veltar appearance. "The Veltar serve the collective now, just as you all will serve when the time comes. Your resistance is meaningless. We have already infiltrated your council, your fleets, your governments. The galaxy belongs to us. How many of you are there?" General Korouth demanded. The creature's laugh was chilling. "Enough, we are the scouts, the advanced preparation. The main force approaches from beyond your galaxy's edge. When they arrive, those who have served us well will be allowed to live as part of the collective. Those who resist will be absorbed like the Veltar." Chen turned back to the council delegation. "Our long-range sensors detected massive gravitational distortions approaching from deep space 18 months ago. We estimate the arrival of a fleet numbering in the hundreds of thousands, possibly millions. The implications hit all of them at the same time. The council fleet that had come to punish humanity for war crimes was facing something far beyond any military threat they had ever imagined." Fleet Admiral T-Rex was the first to recover. "If this is true, then the entire galaxy is in danger. Our combined fleets wouldn't stand a chance against numbers like that." "Which is exactly why they framed us," Chen replied. "They needed the council to eliminate humanity before their main force arrived. Because there's one thing humans have that your peaceful species lack." Elder Season looked at her questioningly. "What?" "Experience with total war," Chen said simply. "For centuries, humans fought each other in conflicts that threatened our entire species' survival. We developed tactics, strategies, and weapons designed for extinction-level conflicts. The kind of war that's coming is something we understand in a way that peaceful species cannot." The room fell silent as the full scope of the situation became clear. The council had come to demand surrender from humanity, but humanity might be the galaxy's only hope for survival. The silence in the research station stretched for long minutes as the council delegation processed what they had learned. Elder Season was the first to speak, her voice heavy with the weight of centuries of diplomatic experience. "Admiral Chen, assuming everything you've told us is true, how long have you known about this threat?" Chen activated another holographic display. "We first detected the gravitational anomalies 18 months ago. Initially, we thought they might be natural phenomena, perhaps a black hole or gravitational wave. But the patterns were too regular, too organized. When we correlated the timing with the Veltar's arrival in council space, we began to suspect a connection. The hologram showed a timeline of events over the past 5 years. The arrival of the Veltar refugees coincided exactly with the first detection of unusual quantum signatures in human space. Over time, these signatures had grown stronger and more frequent. The fake attacks on your installations began 6 months ago," Chen continued. "That's when we realized we were dealing with an infiltration scenario. The shapeshifters were testing our responses, learning our capabilities, and simultaneously working to turn the council against us." General Korouth's insectoid features showed confusion. "But why frame humans specifically? Why not another species?" Captain Valena, her scientific mind working through the problem, answered before Chen could respond. "Because humans are the most militarily capable species in the galaxy. If you wanted to eliminate potential resistance before an invasion, you'd target the biggest threat first." Chen nodded approvingly. "Exactly. Your peaceful council species have amazing technology and vast resources. But you haven't fought a real war in generations. Humans never stopped preparing for the next conflict." Fleet Admiral T-Rex stepped closer to the hologram. "Show us your defensive preparations." Chen manipulated the display to reveal the true scope of humanity's activities over the past 18 months. What the Council had interpreted as suspicious military buildup was actually the largest mobilization in human history. Every orbital platform around Earth and the colonies had been retrofitted with weapons. Civilian shipyards had been converted to military production. Mining operations in the asteroid belt were now producing military-grade materials at unprecedented rates. Most shocking of all, humanity's entire civilian fleet had been secretly converted to military vessels. Every cargo hauler, passenger liner, and research vessel in human space is now a potential warship, Chen explained. "We've been working around the clock to prepare for something that makes the old human wars look like playground disputes," the hologram showed. detailed technical specifications that made the alien commander's eyes widen. Human weapons technology had advanced dramatically in just 18 months. New energy weapons, improved armor systems, and most importantly, tactical coordination networks that would allow human forces to operate as a single unified entity. "Your silence," Elder Season said slowly. "When we sent our ultimatum, you didn't respond because you were preparing for this larger threat." "We couldn't risk revealing what we knew," Chen confirmed. "If the shapeshifters realized we had detected their deception, they might have accelerated their timeline or found other ways to eliminate us before their main force arrived." General Korouth studied the tactical data. "These preparations seem focused on defensive operations. What about offensive capabilities?" Chen's expression grew grim. "That's where things get complicated. Our analysis suggests that conventional military tactics won't be effective against the incoming threat. We're dealing with a hive mind entity that has consumed entire civilizations. Traditional concepts of command structures, supply lines, and strategic objectives don't apply." She activated a new hologram showing the captured shapeshifter. "Based on our interrogation of this specimen, the collective operates more like a viral infection than an army. They don't conquer territory, they absorb it. They don't capture resources, they become the resources." The alien commanders watched in horror as Chen played recordings from the interrogation. The shapeshifter described the process by which entire species were integrated into the collective. It wasn't slavery or conquest in any traditional sense. The absorbed beings became part of a vast networked consciousness, losing their individual identity while contributing their knowledge and abilities to the whole. The Veltar homeworld wasn't destroyed, the shapeshifter had explained in one recording. It was improved. Every citizen became part of something greater than themselves. They transcended the limitations of individual existence. Captain Valina shuddered. "It's describing the complete elimination of free will as if it were a gift. Which is why standard military doctrine won't work," Chen continued. "You can't negotiate with an entity that sees absorption as liberation. You can't frighten something that has no concept of individual death. And you can't defeat an enemy that becomes stronger every time it conquers new territory." Fleet Admiral T-Rex was studying the technical specifications of human weapons. "But you believe you have a solution?" Chen hesitated. "Not a solution exactly, but a strategy that might work. The collective's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness. The networked consciousness requires constant communication between its components. Disrupt that communication, and the individual units lose coordination." She showed them new holographic displays of human research into quantum interference patterns. "We've been developing weapons specifically designed to disrupt the quantum fields that allow the collective to maintain its hive-mind connection. If we can create large enough interference zones, we can force the individual units to operate independently." "And when they're operating independently," General Korouth asked. "Then they become vulnerable to conventional military tactics," Chen replied. "A disconnected shapeshifter is still dangerous, but it's not invincible. It can be damaged, confused, and destroyed." Elder Season was quiet for several minutes, processing everything she had learned. Finally, she spoke. "Admiral Chen, what do you need from the Council?" Chen activated one final hologram, this one showing the entire galaxy with projected force distributions. "Everything. This isn't a war that any one species can fight alone. We need the Council's industrial capacity, their scientific knowledge, and their fleets. But most importantly, we need time to prepare." The display showed various scenarios for the coming conflict. In every simulation where the galaxy's forces remained divided, the collective achieved total victory within months of arrival. Only in scenarios involving complete cooperation between humans and Council species did the defenders have any chance of success. "You're asking us to trust you completely," Fleet Admiral T-Rex observed. "To turn over our fleets to human command, to restructure our entire military doctrine, to prepare for a war unlike anything we've ever imagined." "I'm asking you to survive," Chen replied simply. "The collective is coming whether we're ready or not. The only question is whether we face them as separate species fighting individual battles, or as a unified force with a coordinated strategy." Captain Valina studied the projections carefully. "What's the timeline for their arrival?" "Our best estimates suggest 12 to 15 months before the main force reaches the galactic rim," Chen answered. Maybe less if they detect our preparations and decide to accelerate their approach. The council commanders exchanged glances. Each was thinking about their homeworlds, their families, their entire civilizations hanging in the balance. The decision they made in the next few minutes would determine the fate of trillions of beings across the galaxy. Elder Season stood up slowly. Admiral Chen, I speak for the Galactic Council when I say that we accept your proposal. But understand that this represents a complete transformation of how our species relate to each other. We're not just forming a military alliance, we're creating something unprecedented. Chen nodded. A true galactic civilization, united against an external threat. It's something humans have always hoped for, though we imagined it happening under better circumstances. As the alien commanders prepared to return to their fleets with news that would change everything, the captured shapeshifter in its containment cell began to laugh. Its voice carried across the station as it spoke. You think cooperation will save you? You think your primitive weapons and outdated tactics can stop what's coming? The collective has absorbed thousands of species across multiple galaxies. Your resistance will only make the final integration more educational. Chen turned to face the creature. Maybe, but we're going to make you work for it. The transformation of the galaxy began immediately. Within hours of the council commanders returning to their fleets, emergency communications were flashing across space to every member world. The message was simple but revolutionary. The greatest military mobilization in galactic history was about to begin, and humanity would lead it. Elder Season addressed the full Galactic Council from the bridge of Fleet Admiral T-Rex's flagship. Her words carried the weight of absolute authority built over centuries of diplomatic service. Fellow council members, we face an existential threat that makes all our previous conflicts seem trivial. The choice before us is simple. Unite under human military leadership or face extinction as separate species. I have seen the evidence. I have spoken with the enemy. I vote for unity. The response was unprecedented. 47 species voted unanimously to grant humanity emergency military authority over all council forces. In the entire history of the Galactic Council, no single species had ever been given such power. Admiral Chen found herself in command of resources beyond anything she had imagined possible. The Draconian Empire's battle fleets, the Centauri Federation's technological prowess, the Thylorian science vessels, the Granite Folk's industrial capacity, and dozens of other species' unique capabilities were now hers to coordinate. The first challenge was communication. Human military doctrine relied heavily on rapid, decisive commands flowing down a clear chain of authority. The council species were used to consensus building and committee decisions. Merging these approaches required completely new organizational structures. Chen established regional command centers throughout council space, each led by a human admiral working with council species liaison officers. The human commanders brought tactical expertise and quick decision-making, while their alien counterparts provided knowledge of local conditions and species-specific capabilities. The industrial conversion was even more dramatic. Peaceful research stations became weapons development facilities. Luxury cruise ships were stripped down and rebuilt as troop transports. Scientific survey vessels were equipped with military sensors and quantum interference generators. The Thylorian shipyards, previously used for building elegant passenger liners, began producing massive battleships based on human designs, but incorporating alien technology. Draconian metalworking techniques created armor stronger than anything humans had previously achieved. Centauri Federation energy systems powered weapons that could disrupt quantum fields across vast distances. But the most challenging aspect was training. Council species military forces existed primarily for parade duty and anti-piracy operations. They had no experience with the kind of warfare humans considered routine. Human drill sergeants found themselves teaching Granite Folk soldiers how to move quickly, despite their rock-like physiology. Thylorian pilots learned aerial combat maneuvers that their peaceful culture had never contemplated. Centauri technicians studied human maintenance protocols that prioritized function over elegance. The cultural barriers were immense. Many council species found human military traditions disturbing. The emphasis on individual sacrifice for group survival, the acceptance of casualties as inevitable, and the planning for total warfare concepts that assumed the complete destruction of enemy forces were alien concepts to beings who had known peace for generations. Dr. Elena Vasquez, recalled from her exile to serve as cultural liaison, worked tirelessly to bridge these gaps. She organized exchanges where human veterans shared stories of historical conflicts, helping alien personnel understand the mindset required for survival warfare. War isn't about glory or conquest, she explained to a group of Thylorian officers. It's about making sure your species still exists tomorrow. Everything else is secondary. Meanwhile, human scientists worked with their alien counterparts to understand the collective threat better. The captured shapeshifter provided crucial intelligence, though extracting information from a hive mind entity proved challenging. The creature existed in a state of constant communication with the greater collective, even while physically isolated. It knew things it shouldn't know, reacted to events happening light years away, and occasionally spoke with voices that belonged to absorbed beings from distant worlds. Through careful interrogation, they learned that the collective's advance force had been operating in the galaxy for over a decade. The Veltar infiltration was just the most recent phase of a long-term strategy that included sleeper agents in dozens of species. This revelation triggered galaxy-wide security sweeps. Advanced scanning techniques developed by human intelligence services, combined with alien technology, could detect the quantum signatures that marked collective infiltrators. The results were terrifying. Collective agents were found in council military commands, government positions, scientific institutions, and commercial organizations. Some had been in place for years, slowly gathering intelligence and influencing policy decisions. The discovery that several members of the Council's military planning committee were shapeshifters sent shockwaves through the Alliance. Admiral Chen ordered immediate quarantine protocols for all sensitive personnel. Anyone with access to military secrets or strategic information was subjected to quantum resonance scanning. The process was intrusive and humiliating for the innocent, but necessary. We can't fight an enemy that knows our every move, Chen explained to the council leadership. The security measures are harsh, but extinction is harsher. As the months passed, the transformation of galactic civilization accelerated. Children in council schools learned basic military skills alongside their regular studies. Civilian populations practiced evacuation procedures and resource rationing. Entertainment media began featuring stories of historical human conflicts, helping peaceful species understand the mindset required for survival. The psychological impact was enormous. Species that had known only peace for centuries were forced to confront the possibility of total annihilation. Some individuals struggled with the change, unable to accept that violence might be necessary for survival. Others embraced the challenge, discovering warrior spirits they never knew they possessed. The technological advances were equally dramatic. Human weapons designers worked with alien scientists to create hybrid technologies that neither species could have developed alone. Quantum interference cannons powered by Thylorian energy crystals, armor systems that combined human metallurgy with granite folk mineral sciences, communication networks that used Centauri quantum entanglement to coordinate forces across galactic distances. Most importantly, they developed new strategies specifically designed to counter hive mind opponents. Traditional military tactics assumed enemies would respond to losses by retreating or surrendering. The collective felt no fear, knew no retreat, and viewed individual losses as irrelevant. Human strategists proposed an entirely different approach: psychological warfare aimed at disrupting the hive-mind connection itself. If they could create enough chaos and confusion in the collective's network, they might be able to trigger cascade failures that would cripple entire formations. The strategy required precise timing and perfect coordination. When the enemy arrived, the Allied forces would need to strike simultaneously at multiple points, creating overlapping interference fields that would fragment the collective's consciousness into isolated pieces. 12 months after the Council fleet had arrived at Earth, seeking justice for fabricated crimes, they received the news they had been dreading. Long-range sensors detected the arrival of the collective's main force at the galactic rim. The numbers were worse than anyone had feared. Millions of ships, if they could be called ships, moving in perfect formation toward the galaxy's populated systems. Each vessel was a living organism, part of a vast distributed intelligence that spanned the entire fleet. Admiral Chen stood before the assembled commanders of 47 species, humans and aliens working together in a way that would have been impossible just a year earlier. "This is what we've been preparing for," she said simply. Tomorrow we find out if a galaxy united can stand against a force that has conquered thousands of others. Whatever happens, remember that we're fighting not just for our own species, but for the right of individual consciousness to exist in the universe. The silence that had been humanity's response to the Council's plea for peace had been broken. In its place was something far more powerful, the voice of an entire galaxy speaking as one, declaring that some things were worth fighting for, and that freedom was one of them. The war for the galaxy's survival was about to begin, and for the first time since the collective had begun its expansion across the universe, it would face an enemy that understood the true meaning of total war. The question was no longer whether the galaxy would survive, but whether the collective had finally encountered something it couldn't absorb. The combined will of species that chose to stand together rather than fall separately. In the depths of space, ancient human instincts for warfare merged with alien wisdom and technology, creating something unprecedented. A truly galactic civilization forged in the crucible of existential threat. The Council had pleaded for peace and received silence. Now the galaxy would answer with the thunder of unified resistance against extinction itself.